let's go ahead and start the meeting. And so today's meeting, Friday, May 8th, is the second of two meetings just as an outreach for anybody interested in the proposed construction finance data working group that we are recommending to NIBS undertake under their various structures that we've outlined, so that we can be formally recognized and can then reach out and invite to the various stakeholders, not only that we've identified, but no doubt that we're going to identify as we reach out more, and try to expand the engagement across silos that are involved in the digital ecosystem, the digital twin, the cyber that has to do with it, as well as the Clarity Act and the Genius Act. The intersections are too numerous to name, but I think our focus on one small area, the application for payment, with its universality, provides a good convening platform. The ADCMS grant program provides us a good structure that the government has identified what they want, that allows us to answer it. Now, the question is, we may not want to answer it through the grant. A lot of my DOT friends said it's not worth the time and effort to put forth a grant when it would take their IT guy a half a day. It would take more time to apply for the grant. So let me shift over now. Yesterday's conversation was much more free-flowing, and it was very productive. So we did not go with the agenda, but I'm going to try to do the agenda now because obviously recording it, this would be helpful for anybody else as well. So you should all now be seeing the agenda. And so what we're trying to do is create the foundation where we can form the construction finance data work group under NIBS. And I've shared with you where it resides. Our 90-day action plan is basically to expand our liaison network. Now, I'm using the term liaison because that's what the ISO term is for the people that are engaged. And I do think that NIBS is the perfect place to put together the group, let it gestate into some proof of concepts, so that when we go to ISO and consider participation under the ISO, we have a little more work product completed, a little more consensus developed, and it's just an iteration on our way. But I do think we should always focus on the long game, which is ISO, because obviously the Building Smart group has a whole section there. But also I'm working with the FDX group, which is the ISO group 222 finance entities. And obviously, when we talk about payments are going to hit the banks, and that's as much as they're going to hit a contractor. So being able to be interoperable between industries is important, and ISO can do that and help us synergize. So our AI seed contracts will help identify the business case for why the low quality PDF should be converted to a high quality and high integrity. The DOTs are a perfect example of PDFs in the cloud that could be easily turned into transactional items. So to do it, we have come up with a proposal that if we could get everybody in our network to outreach, here is the data set for the application for payment as we see it now. Are we missing any data elements? And there's no doubt data elements that we could add to this list and add to the taxonomy that would enable any DOT to have legacy data elements that can map to data elements that they used, but perhaps were not in the taxonomy. An example of this is when we met some friends at the DOD. They asked if we could add the CMMI, the cybersecurity model, data numbers to the application for payment to help them track that important part when they have sensitive projects. And that number is just as important as the LEI, which we're trying to put into the review and comment. Most people don't know what the LEI is. The more we bring awareness to it, the more we bring implementation of the LEI into normal transactions, the more successful we'll have in getting the transparency throughout our supply chain and our contract stack that everybody is looking for, particularly our partners at Treasury. And so the review and comment period lends itself to the Treasury. We have asked for Senator Warner's assistance in this, as well as Congressman Ice's office is advanced, and we're looking for any other avenues to get to Treasury. We know Treasury is under the same dictate as most of the federal agencies. They must find ways to transition to digital, and they must find ways to become more data interoperable. The idea of PDFs in the cloud is no more relevant to DOT's PDF in the cloud for project payments as the Treasury's T list, the list of sureties acceptable to the federal government, which is used routinely by all public agencies. Our request to modernize the T list is to simply turn it from a PDF into an actionable resource by adding the LEI to the information the insurance companies provide on themselves. Every insurance company already has one, so that's not a burden on anybody. The URL for validating the documents, that is a critical game changer, and that's what enables the digital ecosystem to work. When a counterparty, like the Department of Transportation, instead of spending hours validating a bond or processing the paperwork, can use the Treasury list or any other mechanism to go find the insurance company and have the insurance company return the entire surety data set, frees up the restriction constraint that most often impacts digital ecosystems, because the one surety number can actually create a return of 150 data elements that a construction management system, a software system, or anybody in the construction management ecosystem may not need all the data elements, but all the data elements they may want may be there. And since it's just as easy for the surety company to send out 150 data elements as it is 5, we might as well have them send out everything that could be used to enable AI to be able to have a broader, more robust set of data to which it could start to apply analytics. So the Treasury, it could be a key partner in this federal partnership. And one of the things that DOGE Section 4 seeks is better interoperability and coordination between federal agencies. Well, if we have the federal agencies at SBA, DOE, DOT, NERC, FERC, and all the rest participating in this review and comment period, it's no doubt their engagement will find us with some other elements, data elements we wouldn't have otherwise known. That engagement will also help get buy-in. And for the private sector, the reason they will buy in is because they can make money at it. For the public sector, it has the added benefit of it provides compliance for some of the mandates that they're operating under. So we're hoping that by engaging the liaison community, our extended, it is public entities seeking compliance and better operations for project planning and procurement, and the private sector for being able to leverage best practices that the private sector could really use for finance, insurance, and a number of things. And the explosion of AI is going to be dependent on the quality of data they get. And so the more AI innovations can rely on high integrity data, which the government can easily deliver because of the famous old golden rule, pay with the gold rules. The federal government could very simply say, in order to receive payment on my jobs, you must apply for your payment using this industry standard. All of the contractor software can incorporate that functionality into their system without constraint, without subscriptions, licenses, or trademarks. And so if a contractor can simply go to any system they have and comply with the government's request that it be submitted in an XBRL, the friction goes away. The government, under most of the legislation that's out there, is required now to report into the federal government, state agencies, how they spent the money. By having the contractors submit their data in XBRL, that provides an integrity of data from the entire life cycle of the project, including the project reporting up into the federal government, that it truly is apples to apples all the way through the life cycle. So we've updated the construction finance data working group webpage to provide access to information, these recordings, readouts, whatever anybody wants to do. What I find, most people look at my websites, they have way too much information. They end up skimming it for maybe 20 minutes. They kind of know what's there. We all know what we're looking for. We're trying to get data from A to B. We're using XBRL. The fact that there's thousands of ways to look at it doesn't really change that. But people like to know where the 1,000 points of resources are. They like to have the library of where's the legislation. They want to refer to it if they ever have to. And frankly, they're using it as prompts that they're for their own AI to make sure that the input that they want their AIs to have some of the output we could give them. So the real question we sort of have in front of us now, moving on to item number 3, is what's the best way to get the DOTs to change. We had sort of explored a little bit. We know the people at the Federal Highway Administration. Perhaps we should go to them originally and say, hey, if you were to create a grant under the ADCIMS or under the Everyday Counts or some of the other ones, or simply find a new pocket of money under the Infrastructure Act or anywhere else, if we were to allocate $1.2 million in this grant fund, we could offer every DOT, the 50 of them, $25,000 to hire the IT person to map their system to the XBRL application for payment. What's nice about the $25,000 number is it reinforces that this is not a big assignment. This is actually a very simple, defined action that is easy. Most people know where to hire their IT guy or even pay for it internally. The other thing it does, which is really key, is it allows them to simply apply by saying, I'll do it. Instead of the current model where we're asking them to put together the business case, the scope, and a budget, they could just simply say, I'm applying for the 25 grand, here's my IT guy, and all they have to do is map. So a very low bar. So between this group's various stakeholders, I gotta believe we can find the right path, because the right path may not be the ADCMS grant, where we ask a DOT to specifically apply, because they don't know if they're going to be awarded. They don't know what they're going to commit to. They don't know. There's too many variables to burden a DOT with that. So any feedback on that is something we'll go through. The ADCMS grant opens in June and ends in August, so we're in no time crunch. And again, I've reached out to Senator Warner on this specific point to see if he couldn't find the way to fund that proposal, because as the author of the Infrastructure Act, as one of the authors, and as the author of the Financial Transparency Act and the Data Act, he's certainly well invested and he's certainly well informed. And if he could create that fund, I believe every DOT out there would immediately sign up, because they would recognize that it's validated by the action of the grant fund being there. And I think if we have Treasury likewise saying that they're going to modernize the T list to enable the connection of the application for payment to the surety who needs to be able to connect to that application for payment to be able to monitor the job, it fulfills so many of the requirements and the objectives of the ADCMS grant, but all of the various legislation. So finding how best to do it and strategizing, I think, is one of the things that this group really should look to do. We have a couple of timeframes. We're going to add another one. June 30th, kind of fun. As everybody know, we had the Apollo film, and I had a chance to get to know, to hear us talk from the Stanford folks that are commercializing space. And they are building an infrastructure to get to space that is no different than the infrastructure of highways and schools and roads. Contractors build things, and digital twins report a system activity. So I'm trying to get at Stanford the integrated facilities, the building people, the building smart people to get together with the space people to recognize they're working on the same thing and they don't know each other. Like anything, it's a huge organization. It doesn't surprise me that they don't know each other, but I can only imagine the compelling business case if more and more people start to focus and convene around the same infrastructure for building out projects as it relates to financing. Obviously, the bigger complex deal is building specs and all the rest. Our working group is not focused on that. Our working group is limited to the narrow financial. So we have the other timeline is we have been offered a place at the NIBS conference in September on Open BIM, which is a natural for us. And that is actually the time slot I was supposed to be on the Innovation Summit on the 18th coming up. They've moved it to this September date. The other date, and I'll have Phil speak to this if he can, is the August 7th and 8th at GMU. They are hosting an event on digital twins and all the rest. And so since they're already hosting an event, we can be added to the agenda and be consistent with the overall. So the question on that is, when do we try to finalize and wrap up, the report to the Federal Highway Administration, to the DOTs, to anybody, in an avenue that allows us to kind of put out a press release, bring the industry together, release it, and then bring closure. And then lastly, the proposal, everybody I think have seen it. We're going to change the leadership to include Phil from George Mason. So that is a quick rundown, so that we have a recorded deal, so those who have missed the calls have a chance to at least see this. David, do you want to touch a little base, if you want, on anything you'd like people who are seeing these recordings, the message you want to share? Because I'm asking you to take a leadership role.
Well, whether that's good judgment or not, I'll leave to you. But I do think it is really important as we go through the list here. It seems like we have, based on the people who attended yesterday, who I saw on the video, and those today, that we have a good talent base. You talked about outreach earlier. I think a part we really should be paying a lot of attention to, I'm sure we will, is to get as much outreach as possible. It's hard to say that there's even such a thing as too much, at least until we start hearing the same thing over and over again to give us a high level of confidence that we're covering, on both the construction and the finance side, that we're covering everything that needs to be done. So, I mean, I've been involved in ontologies and taxonomies before. Just by introduction, I'm with the Enterprise Data Management Association, which recently merged with Object Management Group, OMG. OMG is a standard setter. Digital Twin Consortium, who you've just heard about, also is part of that acquisition, as well as an augmented reality organization called AREA, AREA. We are keen to be helpful in every way possible in helping this go forward.
Well, Max and I have been having a number of conversations, and Max keeps trying to drag me into the technical. And I said, Max, you're going to have to talk to David on the technical side. So, Max, if you would introduce yourself to David and describe some of the issues that you and I were talking about yesterday.
Max, you're on mute, or well, you're not on mute, but you're not coming through.
Well. While he's figuring out his microphone, I'm going to introduce Jeff. I'm glad you joined us. I see you here. So, an example of what I'm trying to do is recognize that there's a bunch of people that are going to be providing any number of services all along the digital ecosystem. Jeff is creating a new product called Surety Science, where he's trying to improve risk management and basically provide surety with new tools that they've never had. And so a foundation that we hope to provide him is the data interoperability that allows him to concentrate on the work he's trying to do with high integrity data, instead of having to first trying to clean unstructured data to try to make use of it. We think people like Surety Science could do a hell of a lot better if everybody's on the same application for payment, so they can focus on what they can do instead of interpretation of the nuances of data usage through the years. Yep. Max, looks like your microphone is muted. So now, is it working?
Can you speak? Can you hear me? Fantastic. Actually, David and I collaborate at the FinTech working group in the Digital Twin. And I'm not trying to drag you to technical stuff. It just
I like it. Don't get me wrong.
The presentation that we had a couple of weeks ago, having all these students talking about digital twin and AI and so on, it's just the type of report you're asking for, other than mentioning the different regulation and rules. I was trying to see how can we build a digital twin if needed, to show them the use case, whatever it is. Plus, when we talk about AI being brought in the mix, there is so many layers in that AI, especially the governing side of it, which is the monitoring, the regulation, the rules, and all stuff, that it's a section by itself that unless we have the people who are expert in that, we're going to have. So basically, to write that report, I'm looking at it as a white paper. And to have the white paper, I think with everybody from today and yesterday, we need to put the lines that's gonna be talked about in the paper before write anything in it. So what I would like to get from all of you is exactly what are we trying to show the Department of Transportation that we can bring to the table from without being very technical, explain to them the whole thing, then show them the whole picture, and mentioning what technology is going to be brought in to get the final goal that we're trying to accomplish here. So back to you.
Yeah, and our request to the DOTs, and I've had conversations with a number of them, is simply when they hit print, they change nothing else. When they hit print, that it prints to a PDF as it always did, but it also prints to an XBRL file for that limited data set that's in the XBRL file. So we're asking them to change nothing, but become plug and play. And again, we've got the estimates of $25,000 to cover any one of their expenses. So our whole deal, the white paper, you're right, for our working group could come later when we have the opportunity to invite, all the people in. In the short term, our white papers just be on why the DOTs, I believe, should switch from a low quality PDF to adding a high quality XBRL map to the XBRL data standard. And this data standard will evolve too. When we do the application for payment today, 4 months from now, we may update it again. And we'll update it again as the development of AI creates new demands. So yes, keeping the first phase of our work product pretty simple to that. But the real issue is all of the other Max you just described, and David, you and I have been talking about. And Jeff, I'm going to ask you as a representative of a third-party vendor who's sort of want to plug into this digital ecosystem. What is it you're looking to as a third-party independent, that can sell your service to a surety, to a broker, to a contractor, whoever? What are you looking for this working group to give you as a resource?
Well, first of all, Dixon, I think you got the wrong Jeff. I'm Scott's partner.
Jeff York.
Yeah, different Jeff.
Different Jeff.
Too many Jeffs, man. Too many Jeffs.
It's always that way. I've run into that, and it's on any call, there's always like 5 Jeffs, and we're always having to apologize to everybody.
Yeah, you weren't actually showing up on the top of my screen. I didn't see you there.
But do we ever truly have enough Jeffs? I don't think so.
No.
And then there's the wise guys who try to name it or spell it differently, like the GEOFF, and it just completely throws everything off.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I've known Dixon for a long time, and this initiative is something he was talking about I won't even say a decade ago. And it's good to see that he saw it through, because this is how true, pioneers are able to change industries. You need someone that understands it, believes in it, and sees it all the way through. At Surety Science, we're doing the same thing. The surety industry is fraught with bottlenecks across it that stop it from reaching interoperability. And more so, I have so many people coming to me, my contemporaries, saying, how do I AI this surety stuff? And without all of this stuff being figured out, they don't have a chance. So what we did, we came up with what we call the surety blueprint. And I've been spending now weeks and weeks just talking to everybody on the lead up to the National Conference for Surety, which is called NASBP. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is get them into a similar framework to say, okay, here's all the things you need to do in order to streamline all of these things. And what Dixon is working on is a part of it. There's, when you talk about XBRL, one of the needs they have is to be able to transmit financial statements and WIPs a lot more quickly than they are today, which is just manual reentry, believe it or not. And this is one of the pieces too in the surety process. So I found it very interesting. I said, Dixon, whatever you need, I've got a big marketing channel. As of today, we just went live with it all, and it's on every social media. We had a press release yesterday. There's another one coming, talking basically about standards in the industry, starting from there. And so this really coincides nicely. And whatever you guys need, I'm here to help.
Oh, this is great, Jeff. Can you share all that with us in an email so I can look at all the work you've been
Sure.
working on? And let me ask you, when you bring the solutions together, are you looking at from the AI side of it? Are you looking at from how the governance of the data is going to look like? Especially with all these, the Department of Transportation. We work with the Department of Defense a lot, so we're always talking about the monitoring of the data, the auditing and the logging, the policy. Are all that being satisfied to their regulation and rules with the work you're doing with your AI?
It's a good question, and what we're finding is that it's not necessarily the obligees, because everybody's been focused on how can we get them in. And what I've explained to the marketplace is we have to give them something that works for them. And they ultimately, they will adopt it if it's easy and it makes sense and everybody's behind it. I think what the problem they have is everybody keeps coming with them with all these different ideas and they don't know who to believe. So I think if all of these different consortiums are following the same pattern and say, yep, this makes sense. It wasn't until recently, as a matter of fact, that I even learned about digital twins. Dixon had been mentioning it, but I didn't really understand it. But once I started getting involved with surety science, how do we solve the problem of moving WIPs, as an example, data, work in process data, from a job site directly to an insurance carrier? Because today, they have to wait sometimes 90 days to get that information if they're lucky. And then by that time, the project has already gone south. And now they have there's risk that they don't need to take. So by understanding these things and articulating and everyone agreeing on these patterns, I'm just teaching people about this in surety right now. And the light bulbs are starting to go off. Like, yeah, it's great that we have XBRL for it, but it could go even further where we get real-time data. So my point being, to answer your question, is it really comes down to, I think the reason why Dixon invited us is he recognized that in surety in specific, I'm doing kind of the same thing that he's doing in this space, and that it coincides. So it's growing your actual the coalition that you're trying to build here.
Well, we differ in that you intend on staying in the computer space. I'm trying to get out as fast as I can.
Believe it or not, Dixon, I believe it's the data. Yeah, it's the data. And a lot of people, I helped found 2 computer, software companies that are used predominantly in the surety space, both called, it was called eSurety. It's now called Tanubu Innoveo. And I'm just winding down at BondPro, which I've been at for 15 years. But I recognized a couple of years ago that for AI to really take hold, it was more about uniformity of pattern, uniformity of data. So as an example, you can have a taxonomy whereas you look at surety, they all can't, why they can't agree on the XBRL? Because of the fact that there's not a drop down there that says, is it large contract, small contract? They haven't agreed on those things. So that's what surety science is trying to promote in that space, to say, here's the data, the uniformity that's necessary for these things to be successful.
Right. But now to the point of uniformity, you just described a fascinating example: large, medium, and small. Those aren't very precise. Semantically, they're quite mushy.
Correct.
I think one of the things we need to make sure to do, if it isn't itemized in law, either at the state or national level, the federal level, is how do we define what those actually mean, so that any entry that's made where that's a choice that needs to be made that it will be made in a way that really is relatable apples to apples. But that, so I mean, I see that as being a difficult part of the task. A question I've got for you, and in particular, but for everyone on the call is, so as we're talking here about a taxonomy for XBRL that will be valuable for the communication of information between the different players, certainly up to the agencies. To what extent is that different from, or a subset of the data points that would describe the security itself, a surety bond? Is there a difference between the two, such as there is in? I mean, my claim to fame is at the SEC doing the XBRL taxonomy for US GAAP. That's what the chairman brought me in for. But there's a difference between what we report in GAAP, what goes into a 10K, and the accounting materials that a bank would use that would be used to manage risk. They're intimately related, but they aren't the same thing. Do we have that instance here?
Yes. Well, first, let's clarify.
Go ahead, Dexter.
Securities are financial instruments like municipal bonds. Surety is an insurance product that's completely separate as a financial agreement. It's two different data sets, two different operations, two different financial products. It's just lucky that they named them the same thing to confuse everybody. It's kind of like the name.
Exactly.
Right. So when you mention securities, that is different. Where the overlap, obviously, and we could talk about this, the Financial Transparency Act said municipal securities now have to report to investors in XBRL.
Right.
Right. But a lot of those municipal securities are funding infrastructure projects which have sureties. So those securities have sureties.
Right. One reason why I ask is that I'll confess to having an additional agenda item in my mind. One of the things I'm responsible for is an ontology called the Financial Industry Business Ontology, or FIBO, right? Which represents, should be the ontology. Think of it like a taxonomy, but with a few differences, not relevant for discussion here, that would describe any and all financial securities out there. And the question I've got is as we go through this process, how can we use what's being learned here to build out that portion of the ontology that might relate to surety bonds? Because I mean, they do represent risk. They might be in the portfolio or otherwise accounted for in financial institutions, insurers, as well as banks, as well as broker dealers, and the whole variety of folks out there. And I would hope that there's an opportunity here to ensure that there is interoperability between the two and an opportunity to build out what isn't in the taxonomy we're talking about here, because it's just natural to want to do that.
It's 100%. I mean, just to try to put this in plain, simple terms, what your interests are more so with what the financial institutions' data looks like. For surety, they are looking for the output of that.
Right.
So it ultimately, let's say that you have a construction company that a bank or financial institution is working with, okay, and they're having to report to their accountant or whoever it is what their books look like. Ultimately, when they purchase a surety bond, as part of in surety, there is continuous underwriting that occurs because they have multiple projects going on, and what they're trying to do constantly is keep sending me your financial statements and your work in progress over and over, so that they can consume it into a system, and that system tells them right away. It rolls up into key performance metrics that tell them, hey, this is going south. Whether it's the debt to equity ratio, there's all kinds of ways that they underwrite this stuff to determine. So it's not like a direct correlation to what you're doing, but if you are getting people to utilize XBRL, ultimately it benefits us. Is the answer to it.
Well, there's all right, and we don't have to go into it deeper here, but the connection between what's being provided for reporting purposes and the actual granular attributes of what's being done. I'm guessing that they heavily overlap, but they are not, or at least they may not be the same. And I think if this effort feeds the other effort, I think, would be tremendously valuable both for financial institutions and for the larger economy. I'm just confessing, I've seen some of that from the other side, because during the 90s I was the head of strategy and business development for McGraw-Hill's Construction Information Group, and these questions were coming up all the time. I left it behind, and now it comes back to hit me in the head, which will be a lot of fun. But anyway,
I would say that the shift is you have to stop thinking of it as security for a Bible for securities. But like we did on surety, we used to call everything a surety bond, and then we realized, well, wait, a consent of surety, a change order, those aren't. So instead, we changed it to surety documents because it covers more. I would suggest it should be for financial documents. Securities are financial documents. Surety bonds are financial documents. Insurance policies are financial. Loans are financial documents. FIBO should handle financial documents. And that's the umbrella that would connect them all.
We'll have more conversations about this in the future. I just wanted to raise that as an interesting output for all of this.
Yeah. So to give
I would say, I'll just say one more thing. I would say ultimately that for very large companies, they're outputting 10K reports, and the taxonomy that's there today works. But the problem is, the smaller the company goes, the less they need of that taxonomy when they're reporting. So that's the determination that I'm working with the surety industry to say, what does that really look like, right?
Yeah. And by the way, I was at the Financial Industry Information Management Association event in Boston 2 weeks ago, and enough people remember me as the XBRL guy and come up and tell me, you fucked up on this particular aspect of it. You didn't get it right. It was terrible. Well, we still use it and get a lot of value out of it, but you screwed it up and you're accountable. So I have to live with that.
Crowd. They're a tough crowd, David. I'll tell you.
Years later, it's still hanging on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And I'll let Jeff speak to this too, but an update on the upcoming NASBP meeting. The surety industry is recognizing that digital has to happen. We've been having a technology committee meetings every year, and every year it's really the same thing. We've got to do something. We've got to do something. We've got to do something. It's been very frustrating because it's very hard to get competitors to all agree. And at the end of the day, it's a trade association of competitors. So NASBP has been pursuing something with Riskstream, a very credible effort to try to create a repository that leverages blockchain and creates an industry resource to help the industry collectively move forward. That's been very challenging in getting funding and getting, proof of concepts done and all the rest. And that frustration led to a couple of sureties have created a separate group called the Surety Bind, in which the major surety companies have said, look, we've got to solve this. We're going to just put together some group experts. We're going to put our hat on and we're going to figure this thing out. And we hope to have something to our industry in 2027. So one of the things you'll notice in my recommendation to the Treasury is that when they update the URL, the surety has a choice. They can validate it themselves, or they can use the Surety Bind proposal when it comes out, or they can use the Riskstream model. Our objective is that our initiative is not to pick winners and losers. It's to enable stakeholders to plug and play and let meritocracy win. And right now, Surety Science wants to create a product that'll plug in, and tomorrow he'll have competitors. And next day, I'll have a competitor. Everybody will have competitors. That's the objective of our group, is to enable competitors. So at the Surety Association, there's no doubt going to be some confusion about which of these groups, which is going on. I was not attending because I was going to be at the Innovation Summit in Washington, D.C., and now the hotel rooms are all sold out or whatnot, and I'm not sure I'm going to go. But I would go if I had the authority on behalf of NIBS and the group that there is a working group to invite them to. I believe that the Surety Bind group would accept the invitation as much as the Riskstream group would, just as much as Surety Science will, as Aon and Marsh and well. I think they'll all accept the invitation to this working group because it is central to so many topics right now. And I believe we can convey a sense that something's going to happen here. This is not a committee meeting about committee meetings. This is a working group that's going to actually produce a working capability for data exchange that is high integrity, across multiple stakeholders. Now, on top of the financial statement, I think, Jeff, you and I have shared this, but it's pretty funny. One of the CPAs we've been working with, I asked him if he would be willing to give me the CPA statement and the GAAP statement electronically instead of in PDF. And he said, well, that's kind of funny. He says, all the CPA systems are out there. There's about 5 or 6. The reason we put it out in Excel, we convert it to PDF to give it to you. I go, you're giving it to me and I'm converting it back into digital. Why don't we skip the
And
PDF?
then they got a whole bunch of people hand keying it into the systems again. Yeah.
Hand keying it in.
This is financial statements in 2006, right?
Yeah.
The same thing.
That's right. So our group basically there's a trade association of CPA that are focused on construction. That's 77 different CPA groups. We're going to be inviting them to the deal as well. I've spoken to them. And every one of those systems, when they export that Excel spreadsheet, it's in GAAP. They can twist it just a little bit so that they export it in an XBRL format. And next thing you know, thousands of contractor accounts would be able to offer the surety, the financial statement, and XBRL at no cost. And so when they come onto the group and they share that potential, the surety companies, all the surety companies that have been trying to figure out how to get that financial data in, they're going to say, oh, well, I'll take that route.
Here are two questions I've got for you. Dixon, because you hit on a point of having the CPA, construction CPA stuff, I forget what it's called, something like that. Very powerful, very interesting. Adjacent to that, and what was really helpful in the XBRL processes in the past were the software vendors, who are producing. And I remember from my McGraw-Hill days that there was quite a vigorous sector of folks who produced software for the construction market. I didn't see any folks around the table from yesterday or today. Have you reached out to them? Are we likely to get one or two of them? Because they're the ones who are going to have to integrate this to have products that will actually do this.
I can actually speak, or if you want to go.
Yeah, is that you, Jeff?
Well, no, I mean, there's a trade group that was formed by Autodesk and Trimble and whatnot. That's called Construction Progress Coalition. Its membership is the construction software vendors. But the more likely candidate is the AGC has an IT forum. Every contractor system is a member of the AGC IT forum. Only the people who are trying to develop IT products are in the Construction Progress Coalition.
Yeah.
But that's a very powerful group. Those are the guys who are really developing. The AGC IT group are the people, a lot of them are watching, but absolutely we have an avenue to that group. And they are.
Do they know we're doing this? Do they know we're doing this? Okay, good. Because if you don't tell them, they can come back and beat the crap out of you. And that relates to my next question, especially in the wake of your meeting with Senator Warner. For the folks at Treasury who'll be responsible for them. I work in Treasury, but I don't know exactly what part of Main Treasury would be doing this. We should have, if we don't have one yet, the name of somebody who will be a liaison to be part of, just like I was liaison from the SEC looking into XBRL. I mean, it's the smart thing, because eventually we're going to be asking them to kind of put their thumb on the scale in some way, shape, or form, probably. So is there progress on that, or is that something that you've already thought of and are taking care of?
I've actually met with Treasury. The people that are involved in the financial oversight. Robert Peterson, I think you probably know Robert. But he's on the LEI side. And Mike Willis, I've also asked if he would, he's got a lot of connections in Treasury.
Okay, but he's not in Treasury. So, I mean, at some point, there's an objective of getting somebody, a staffer, even if not a manager, to be our liaison and to sit in on some of these meetings so that they can be managing expectations as we go down the path. Just really, really important. But
oh yeah, no, and I have reached out to them.
Great.
But let's face it, I reached out to him as Buck Rogers in Nevada, right? So I have not been able to break through. Congressman Isis forwarded a deal on our behalf, but ISA has been great. He's a co-author of the Data Act.
Right. Daryl is he's great. Was very valuable to many things we did, often through the Data Foundation, which might be relevant here. But Okay, just something we can work on to make sure that this is received in the way that for all the work that we're going to do to get this done, that it'll be received in the way intended.
Oh, they're going to be one of the invited participants. Absolutely. And the neat part about them is, the government always wants a case study to kind of show that we're doing makes sense. We can show with our DOE funding, we got Orange Button. Orange Button went on to develop the permitting for a solar project. It's called Solar App. And it digitized the solar app so that anywhere in the country, you could go to any one of the 18,000 jurisdictions that issue permits with a single data set. Now, the jurisdictions didn't like it because it took away a process that used to take 8 to 10 weeks to same day. And they thought it was a job killer. California passed a law that mandated it. And what they recognized, it wasn't a job killer. They were able to process, instead of 100 permits, 1,000. And the efficiency grew, and they started logging. They're saving thousands and thousands of hours of agency time. So you can imagine the DOTs, if they could validate a bond and get all the data of the surety into their system and have that surety-based risk management and get rid of all the paper management and all the paper foldings and all the rest, they would save thousands day one. And so we have a case study for them, and that's all documented on how it just changing the digital permit changed thousands of hours, changing how an agency gets a bond and save thousands of hours. It's the same. It's really the same thing. Now, when you talk about getting the data sets, AGC leads a group called Consensus Docs. Consensus Docs is different than the AIA in that the AIA, American Institute of Architects, as architect representatives of the owner, generally lean favorable more toward the owner. So the group of trade associations, 40 of them, including the surety, NASBP and SFAA, and the AGC, ABC, CFMA, the electricians, 40 trade associations came out with standardized forms for their contract, for subcontract, for surety bonds. So the point is when you say, these data elements being socialized, through the AGC consensus initiative by itself, we have 40 trade associations who have already agreed upon the data sets for these specific forms. So we are taking the consensus bond form, and those data elements obviously are in the surety bond data set and the application for payment for consensus doc or AIA. Those are all in our application for payment. So you can choose the AIA form or you can choose the consensus form, and the text will be different for the language of the form, but the data elements are synergized now. So whatever system it is, you got a Procore or a Timberline, a DOT, well, it doesn't matter. You can communicate with any different trade association. It's the data that's standardized. And the consensus doc led by AGC gives us access to not only 40 different trade associations, but access to those 40 trade associations with data sets already established, because the forms themselves create the form fill for the data elements they use. And so that's how we are engaging the extensive group of anybody in the built environment, because they're all members of this consortium for data standards. Now they're working on the text. We're just going to add to it, these are the data elements that are in your text. And we've already been told they're absolutely going to be joining, because the difference here, as you're probably familiar, most people, whatever their form is, it may be a proprietary form, which you're supposed to pay a licensing fee to use, but most people just throw it on the copier and use it. So AIA and Consensus Doc have a very tough time monetizing their bond forms and their standardized documents, because it's really hard to collect revenue. And what they like about the model we're presenting is that anybody who issues on any of those forms while we're collecting the premium can collect the fee. I mean, the fee is like $1.50 or something inconsequential. You can't do it by itself, but if you aggregate it as just part of a process, and AI, right? What is this? Are you licensed to use it? It collects licensing fees and pays for the ongoing modernization of the AIA and the consensus doc bond forms. Because as we go into this new digital world and digital assets, those agreements are no doubt going to be modified, and they have to be modified to accomplish this new environment we're living in. Well, somebody's got to pay for that. And so if we can find a way to have digital documents be able to be monetized when there are licensing fees and whatnot, that can support data standards for each trade association to have their own standard, income from their own sources, income, and people are buying their product from AIA or consensus stocks, knowledgeable that they're paying to have a data standard they could use. So yes, that's huge, and that's a big part of our initiative.
So to your point, and to David and Jeff, we need to, and especially Jeff, would like to have a side talk with you about having a semantic layer for the data management. And for the fee collection, David, I would like to your feedback on this. Do you think will be great to put them on a distributed ledger or on chain? This way, we'll have all the regulation and stuff in let's say, a smart contract, and now anybody is using it. We know who's the owner and who's gonna get paid. Would that be something we can add in this use case, especially when we're gonna create all these AI agents in the future to automate certain steps and procedures? What do you think, guys?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I never see a single repository. In other words, one place controlling where all the information is. Travelers and Liberty and Safeco, all the insurance companies, they're going to maintain their own deal. They're going to maintain their ingress and outgress, their permissions, however they communicate with people. The same as Caltrans is going to be over here. The same as GSA is going to be over here. I never see any one central clearinghouse. So we have to set up, this is the process to be XBRL compliant. And then the AI agent, when they connect to TextDot or whatnot, today, if it connects on TextDot or Caltrans, it says, there is no good data here. You're going to have to do the PDF interpretation, right? But soon, we hope when that API call gets there, goes, this is an XBRL compliant. And that way, all of those security measures you just talked about, they're already handled by that data provider. And it just comes over to the surety company, the bank, wherever it is. And then it's under their management. There is no management in between.
But that's why I believe we need to create that semantic layer to use all these ontologies and stuff in it for the right information and real time updating the whole thing, not in patches, so can be truly used by AI or by any application on those agencies. David and Jeff, what do you think?
I would hope that if we're able to produce a high quality taxonomy, that would enable real innovation in this way. I don't know enough, and you can educate me, Max, on the need to co-develop or simultaneously develop, the blockchain and taxonomy processes, but I know that without a high quality taxonomy, you can't automate a process effectively. You can have an automated process with a crappy taxonomy, and you'll merely be creating more make work for someone down the road. So, but that's just a thought. I've got to drop for another call right now. I'm sorry. This is really my apologies to everyone for not being in yesterday's call, but I'll be the regular going forward.
I'll reach out, David, and
thank you, Max. We need to talk, Dixon. I look forward to talking to you. And
I'll
Jeff,
follow up with a readout on this one too, David, and a recording like I did last night. Hopefully I'll figure out how to do it.
I also have a 3 p.m., but what I'll say to you, Max, I think that Dixon's right on, at least with the insurance companies, the approach has to be that and recognize that they're reluctant to centralize data. And, I think with Surety Science and our initiatives are actually supporting decentralization and saying so long as we all can agree on patterns and taxonomies and shared data governance for all the stuff that goes into the taxonomy that everybody has to agree upon, that I think they'll come. The problem is that doesn't really exist yet, so they've been kind of just sitting by the wayside.
Fantastic. I reach out to you on LinkedIn, so I look forward to have a side talk with you on data management and stuff, and see how we can help bring the whole thing to this. Fantastic.
Thank you
Good
all.
seeing
And I
everyone.
did miss, I'm sorry I missed the Thursday. I had a meeting on top of it, but I'll be at any meeting that I'm invited to.
Fantastic.
And,
Dixon, you gonna send us the recording for yesterday and today?
yeah, I sent it out, and David said he got it. It
Okay,
was
let
yeah,
me. I'm getting 5 gazillion emails, so let me see if what it did lost somewhere. But I'll look for it.
but it was but it was the weirdest thing. This morning I was going to pull it up for the agenda, and I can't find it in my sent box.
Then do us a favor with the one from today. Just send the other one, and let's see if we'll receive it.
You got it.
Fantastic. Good seeing everyone. We'll talk soon.
And Phil, thank you for joining in again. You should reach out to Dave. He is obviously a great guy, and take leadership and make it a program or a process that really supports the DT Rich Center, and elevates particularly your visibility. And with that, I will sign off.